State Farm is a well-known insurance company. They're in a market with several different types of insurance, but their main competitors in the car insurance company are Progressive, Allstate, USAA, and there's many more. But State Farm is one of the biggest shareholders. They hold a huge market share. It's a competitive environment, but they're doing a very good job. 1 out of every 5 drivers on the road is insured with State Farm, and they get over 35,000 claims every single day. So they're big dogs when it comes to this market. But some of their competitors have come up with the idea that would boost customer loyalty and really just give them a good reputation, where it's a safe driving program where they reward customers by giving them discounts if they are a good driver. State Farm has one of these intact, but they want to enhance it to give them an advantage over their competitors, but they would have to use big data. The way they would be using this is by implanting these devices in drivers' cars that show their driving habits. Are they distracted on the road? How fast do they react to situations? How hard do they brake? And how late do they brake? Many other things, just how good of a driver they are. And they have a criteria system, and you get rewarded with up to 50% discounts on your bill if you're a good driver. The idea is that if poor drivers are alerted that they're poor drivers, they might be more motivated to become better drivers. If they become better drivers, they're less likely to get in an accident, which means they won't have to file any claims towards State Farm, which means State Farm won't have to pay for any new vehicles, which means they make more profits. In the end, it's a chain reaction that would be very beneficial financially for State Farm, and that's the idea behind it. But they would need to promote this in a way that doesn't show that they're doing this just for money. A thing like this is more of a community service type advertisement, in my opinion. I think this would need to be something where State Farm is showing they're appealing to emotion and sentiment in their advertisements, showing that they are doing this to save lives and to help people feel more safe on the road. And they would need to show this, that they're just doing this for the environment and not to make profits, because people already know that they're wanting to make profits. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of a business. But if they're focusing on how much money they'll make based off of it, then they're going to be looked at as greedy and that they don't actually care about the everyday person. So they need to really stress the fact that this is consensual, that the customers know that they're being watched, and that they're just doing this to help people. I think it's a great idea, but many privacy people, like privacy advocates, disagree. One of these would be the Privacy Rights Clearinghouse, which is a company that advocates for people's privacy and fights big businesses and is a huge enemy of several chains of big data. They could potentially file a legal lawsuit if they feel State Farm is abusing this power, because then one of their concerns is that State Farm could use this information to track people's driving routes. They would have access to GPS systems. They would know where people are at. They could communicate with law enforcement if someone's doing something wrong. And that's kind of a little bit overboard. And these privacy companies think that State Farm could definitely have too much power here and take advantage of it. And they're just worried about the everyday citizen being violated. There are many factors to consider when making this decision. One of them would be how would the public view this, which a lot of that is based on the advertising, which I kind of previously discussed. Another is how has similar programs worked for other insurance companies. Progressive and Allstate are two great examples of companies that are using programs similar to this. State Farm's, I think, would be a little more data-centered, but the idea has already kind of been there from other companies. One of these is Snapshot by Progressive, which is very similar. It's like a device that tracks people's driving. Very, very close concept to what this would be. And it's 10 years in the running. Progressive did this a long time ago, and it's been very successful. This is the most recent data I could find, which is just 2012, so I wish I could have found something newer, but it wasn't easy. It's onlineautoinsurance.com, which is a very credible source, and it shows that Snapshot has been very successful. 70% of their drivers that have used it have been eligible to get a discount. I think that's a great percentage, because that means only 3 out of 10 on the road are considered not very great. And if they realize they're not very great by Snapshot, maybe they're better. It's 5 years have passed, so it could have made a huge influence on people's awareness of their own skills and maybe work to improve their skills by just showing them what their problems are. It also left the company with about $5 billion miles, of data that they can use to improve on rating systems. And I think that adds a lot of credibility to Progressive, because whenever they post a statistic on their site or something, it's well sourced, and people know that it's legit because they have 5 billion miles. That's a lot of data that's been sent into them that they've had to analyze and break down using technology, and I think that's done a lot. How does the media view State Farm's safe driving customer loyalty? That's another big factor. Is State Farm considered loyal to their customers? One statistic I noticed online that I thought was interesting was Forbes. In 2015, they compiled this statistic that's called the Customer Loyalty Engagement Index. Basically what this is it's just a way that they tracked how loyal companies are to their customers, how people considered them as far as how well State Farm treated them. Number 1 in this list is not State Farm, it's Progressive. Number 2 is Geico. Number 3 is USAA. And then number 4 is kind of almost like a tie, very, very close percentage between Allstate and State Farm. So even though State Farm's doing great in the market, they're not considered one of the most loyal compared to their competitors. I don't know how big of a sample size this data was, but Forbes is a pretty elite website when it comes to the business field. So I feel like this would be a well-researched project. So State Farm has a lot of work to do, and this could really help with that. There are alternatives that State Farm needs to consider. One of these, it would just be stick to their current strategy. They're number 1 in the market. They're doing great. So considering there's a chance that they could go down, there's also a big chance that they could go up as far as their reputation. But they could go down if these lawsuits and stuff that could potentially hurt them and their reputation. It's not worth the risk. They don't need to take chances, some would say anyway, because they're doing great, and there's no reason to try to throw that all away to take a risk that is new to the market that isn't guaranteed to work. Another idea would be promote the program, but just simplify the structure. What I mean by this is continue doing this program of Drive Safe and Save, which would help with customer loyalty, but instead of doing this whole big data thing where they install devices, maybe just do something simpler, like a simpler approach. One example of this would be just by using accident claims and saying, hey, if you don't get in an accident for a whole year, then we're going to give you a discount. That way technology doesn't play into it quite as much, and it doesn't feel infiltrative, but at the same time, customers are being rewarded for safe driving. That way it's a less of a risk, but also gives State Farm a good edge and just a good position in the market. At the end of the day, if I was in State Farm's front office, the decision I would make, which I'm a pretty innovative person, is I would go with this. Personally, there is a risk, but State Farm has wiggle room in the market share to take risks. I think this could definitely pan out. I think it most likely would pan out as long as they stress through promotion that this is consensual, voluntary, that not everyone is forced to do this, that it's just purely if you want to, and that they stress how much they could be rewarded. I think people would flood towards this promotion. People would flood towards State Farm just so they can get 50% off, or that they at least have the chance to. And people don't mind being tested if there's something in it for them. So as long as State Farm stresses that and just shows that they're loyal to their customers and that they want to just clean up the roads and they promote this in the right way, I think this could be a huge success, a home run hit for State Farm, and just give them a bigger edge over their competitors. Thank you.